This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
Gentlemen, welcome to this production meeting for artists who are experts in CGI, like you obviously are.
Yes,
right?
yes, of course.
Here's the thing: we've got a big budget coming up for the movie coming up for the summer. I need you to give me superheroes, giant beasts, all sorts of costumes,
not a problem,
huge elaborate sets, and then you have $25 to do it.
Okay, I'll go use Pixelmator real quick.
Yep,
is that fine?
You got it.
Okay, Photoshop Elements.
There you go.
Do tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay. Welcome to Baconsale. I'm Joel.
I'm Kent.
And I'm Zack.
We'd like to thank you for listening to our last show, our band category show with Briggs.
We appreciate the feedback, and we appreciate those who sent their own lists. Off the top of my head, I know Scott Spriggs sent one. I know Ryan Farron sent his. Thank you to everyone who plays along. We always love and appreciate it.
I like when they say, nobody asked, but here's my list. We're like, we literally asked you at the end of every episode.
We want it. We love it. Thank you very much
We
for
want some more
along.
of it.
There. Also, shout out to Kendall Eliason, who really just wants Briggs off his lawn. I had mixed emotions from this episode. On one hand, I enjoyed Briggs torpedoing the favorite brands of Baconsale. On the other hand, this Gen Zer is mostly wrong and needs to get off my lawn. So,
sure, Kendall.
It's complicated.
Spencer Myers said Zachary nailed it with that last pick. I love the Hush sound. Wine Red is one of my favorite songs of all time. Got you, Spence. Got you. And then finally, we have Tanya Budge, who said, I was glad to hear an Erasure pick on there. That's great. She says, leaves a longer message, but I'll just summarize. I have a hard time listening to podcasts about music, but this was a fun podcast to listen to and don't feel ashamed. Okay. There was a lot of apologies on our episode.
Tanya, we do a lot of episodes about music.
She says, please don't apologize for the music that you like.
Okay, there we go.
Good message.
It is a good
like
message. It's a hopeful message. Thank you.
But that's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about hopeful messages. What are we talking about today, Zach?
We're talking about CGI. And this
computer-generated
Welcome
images?
to an auditory
Audio.
podcast.
By the way, they seem to have dropped the I, I've noticed.
CG,
It's just called CG now.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like almost when people say www at the beginning of a URL.
Yeah.
So
It's the OK Boomer
I'm going
sort of thing.
to do my best.
Does I stand for imagery or images?
I think so. Computer-generated imagery.
Yeah.
Should we look that up?
No.
Why?
Because it's gone?
No.
So it's just computer. It's almost
Stands
computer
for
generated.
World Wide Web.
Yeah, right. In my reviews, I'll write like,
Computer-generated imagery.
okay, I'll put like, oh, the CG was terrible, or the CG wasn't up to par to where the budget should be, right? We notice this more and more now. And maybe it's because the only movies that come out in theaters now are tentpole movies. The superhero movies where you're like, I saw better quality 10 years ago. Why is that a thing?
When computer graphics first started coming around, it was definitely noticeable because they're very boxy and kind of awful.
Yeah.
But then as it got further along and got smoother and smoother, it's funny to me how you can your brain still picks up on it being there because it's everywhere. It's most of movies now will have something in there that's computer generated.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Like backgrounds. We talked about the volume, how Lucasfilm and Disney, they do the volume. And it's all a CG background, essentially.
A dome that just
like a
puts the
computer
background
wallpaper
on. Yeah.
in motion. Do you think people first started complaining about it with the prequels?
The Star Wars prequels?
Like, we can talk about it like a little bit maybe with the special edition, but the Star Wars prequels, I feel like people are like, too much CG. Even when the actors were doing the behind the scenes, they're like, I was talking to a tennis ball.
That was around the time when you started to see a shift to completely digitally created backgrounds.
Yeah, like they were literally jumping off like green bricks onto saddles that were green.
From blue to blue to blue to blue. You know?
Yeah.
And you can see struggles, and we're going to talk about this in these movies that we are looking at today. But you can just tell there's a disconnection with the actors whenever they're not in a real environment. You know, some are better than others, but I think really around that Star Wars prequel time, that early 2000s, that's when there was that big shift.
Yeah.
Now everything's done on a green screen. I was watching behind the scenes footage of The Dark Knight from 2008 and the famous party scene where
the Joker walks in.
Yeah, Joker shows up at the party.
They jump off the roof and everything's
fine. They jump off the roof. It's showing that being filmed, and all the windows are green. You know, that wasn't real.
Nolan.
You know?
Batman's not real.
What? Nolan?
It's now common practice, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, movies have always been made on big, sound stages and in these big studios, and they just build the sets in there. But now they're like, well, we're just going to put a little green screen in
Isn't
the
it funny?
background.
Like, there are so many talented artists that are making computer graphics. They've done incredible things that have made things that we could only imagine be up on screen. right?
Yeah.
And we could talk about good examples, not on this show.
Sure.
But we now have like gone back to like, hey, if a director or a crew does practical effects, we respect you, bro. Right? Isn't that weird?
there's
Because
been-
that's the way film was for 80 years.
There's been a massive shift in how the industry works. And every time there is bad CGI in a movie, yeah, sure, there's probably somebody made a mistake along the way.
Sure.
But almost always it comes down to the resources. Did they have enough time? Did they have enough people? Was there a clear enough vision?
Well, the way I've heard it spelled out, recent events have kind of made this more prevalent. But they say, here's how it works. A studio goes out there and says, "Hey, we want this many shots done. Give us your bid." And then people put in their bids of how they can get it. And the people who want the work will bid really low, and they'll get the job.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, "That's great. Now you have this tiny window to turn it all around
Well,
and do it exact and do all this other stuff."
One of the artists that worked on The Flash, which we will talk about, and The Flash had atrocious special effects.
Just the most recent movie.
Yeah, the most recent one, which there was so much money put into that, and it was meant to be this kickoff. Well, the artist said, yeah, we know it was bad, even though the director said that was on purpose for some reason.
They
Who
said it
knows
was
why.
intentionally. It was supposed to be in Barry's mind.
stylized.
But the artist basically described it as, in a really relevant way, as a 9-to-5 job. And he said, hey, look, we all get projects. Basically, he said, there may be an action scene that is 2 minutes long. There may be an action scene that is the climax and it's 20 minutes long. You get a week for each major action scene after you bid for it. And they'll say, hey, are you done with that 20-minute scene? That's going to cost $40 million for that scene alone. It's like, no, you didn't give us time to render it or anything. Well, we need it. Right? There are deadlines, there are expectations, and the work becomes unfinished. And we all mock these movies, and I do feel bad because we're going to be doing this here. But there are these artists who work on it and probably go, we tried, but we didn't get the time or attention.
I don't blame the artists at any point. And actually, I would like to shout out a YouTube page that's really brought a lot of this to light.
Totally.
It's the Corridor Crew.
Yeah.
They've been doing a series now for years called CGI Artists Review Good and Bad CGI, something like that.
Yeah.
And they actually bring some of these guys on, the guys who worked on the infamous stuff. And they're like, tell us the story behind it. Yeah. And it almost always comes down to, we didn't have the time, we didn't have the resources.
Yeah.
And so I want to just blanket statement. At this point, we are not blaming the artists at all.
Oh,
Sometimes.
yeah.
Maybe sometimes.
Well, look, yeah, I mean,
No, I believe sometimes.
if there's a bad
I think it's what it is,
concept
but I think-
or story or artwork,
I think sometimes people, and I'm not saying this is like the standard. I'm just saying sometimes I think people were like, "Oh yeah, I got this. I'm really good at this," and then they present something and they're
and
like,
it's the dancing baby and Ally McBeal, right?
Well,
but that's all they could do back then.
Sure.
but imagine some guy who's like, we're going to have this fight between these two characters, and I want like a metal snake to come out of his arm. And they're like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. Well, it doesn't matter. Figure it out.
That's what Joel says every week when I make the image.
I wasn't going to make
Put
that
a metal
comparison.
snake coming out of his arm.
Wasn't going to make that comparison.
There
but,
better
no.
be one in this image, Ken.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
A metal snake coming out of someone's arm.
All right, so we're going to talk bad CG. Sorry to the artist. Once again, studio's fault. We get it. But that's what we're discussing today. But how are we discussing it?
We are bringing back an old school methodology, previously called the Fearamid.
The Fearamid from 2016.
I wasn't even
Back on episode 79,
this is
78 or 79 and 80 of Baconsale.
Yeah, this is BB. This is before Briggs.
Yeah. And BZ.
This is probably BZ.
BZOB.
BZ on
Zack and
Baconsale.
Baconsale.
BYOBZBB?
Bless you.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with the Fearamid, it's essentially a way to build a ranking list.
Zach, could you describe it in a way that you did before the show that was similar, and this may not be relevant to people, but you mentioned something about like Mortal Kombat.
Yes, it's almost like we're having that, the gauntlet when you play the Mortal Kombat. You beat the first guy and you move on up the
Climb
list.
the tower.
And they get progressively harder. Well, on our list, we're going to get progressively worse in our CGI. So if you think about a pyramid, at the base, that's going to be the stuff that maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And up there at the top, it's going to be the worst one.
And there's
We're looking at the worst CGI here. We're not talking about things we're afraid of, even though it's called the Fearamid.
and there's different regions or categories that the best fighter will be victorious / the worst fighter will be victorious.
Yes.
I'll say it that way. And then the worst fighters will go head to head.
Would you like
in
me
the
to
end.
summarize the categories really quickly?
Please do.
To start. Okay, we're going to be talking today about CGI monsters, animals, action scenes, superheroes, people, also known as, look at what it did to my boy. Uncanny animation, And de-aging. I feel like I just started Jeopardy. And I got really excited that we were doing Jeopardy.
And this is a very visual medium, we know. And so if you don't know what we're talking about, you can look these up online very easily just by saying CGI blank.
We did try to add well-known examples, but there are a couple of random ones in here as well. All right, here we go. We are going to, again, build our list. So whatever I mentioned first, it's going to immediately go in the middle, and then we're going to decide whether the next option is better or worse than the first presented. You'll get the flow of it as we go. It's almost like a mini tournament.
Yeah, there's about 5 or 6.
But they're relevant
in each category.
fighters against each other.
Yeah.
So let's start with the CGI monsters. First, with the zombies or vampires or whatever they've been called, the creatures in I Am Legend with Will Smith.
Now, this is the movie when Will Smith is like the last man on Earth and the virus has wiped out everyone. And there's these creatures that wander around during the dark that look pretty good in the dark.
In moments in the dark, like you said, when you find them in that room, it's creepy stuff. But in the end, when their mouths get really big and they're growling, you can tell it's CG.
Well, I mean... Yeah.
It's 100% CG, but you can it's stark.
Tony Stark.
There's nothing on this list that you can't tell.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we
CG.
did.
That's an overview.
I was going to say, we specifically chose bad examples.
Yeah. Does it take away the fear once you see these monsters?
I definitely think the zombies or whatever they are a little less intimidating because they could look a little goofy.
Yeah.
Specifically, the texture of the skin is just off.
Shiny.
Yeah, but that's a big problem in all of this. But,
all right, so what's going above or beneath?
That's our midpoint right now. Going up against that, maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. From Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the troll in the dungeon.
Good for its time?
No, actually,
okay, that's what I was wondering.
Hot take. I think that most CGI in the Harry Potter movies is pretty bad.
Dobby?
Dobby's an exception.
Dobby wasn't
Dementors
good.
Are okay.
Dobby wasn't good compared to Gollum, but good on its own.
Dobby
and then
was
Dobby
good,
got better.
But like the Hippogriff and
Dementors are great.
Just the general world is so gray.
Yeah.
By the way, Harry Potter's about a young boy who learns he's a sorcerer.
By the way,
or a wizard.
No notes for this show. No synopses.
There's some.
Okay.
Well, general synopsis.
Yeah.
But I do think, especially now, it hasn't aged particularly well. That said, I don't think it's as
But
bad.
if I may give a counterpoint here, I just feel like I give a little leeway in a children's movie. A little bit.
Sure.
Children's fantasy movie.
And a children's fantasy movie, I don't think the Cave Troll is as egregious as the serious, supposed to be intimidating zombies from I Am Legend.
So you'll put the troll below.
I would put the troll below.
This is going to be confusing, but you're right. It is a better version of CG than the vampires.
Okay. The vampires are worse. Next up, we have Dante from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is a bunch of random historical figures and fictional figures working together to fight crime.
In graphic novel form. This is a superhero movie that no one saw that ended Sean Connery's career. And it's a super weird movie.
Did that, Kent?
Oh, jeez.
He could have kept going.
But they have a Jekyll and Hyde character, and the Jekyll and Hyde character fights a bigger version of his own character.
Russell Crowe?
Yeah, right. And it's like a really kind of bulbous, muscly guy, and it's just this freak of nature. It looks like bubblegum on screen.
It looks like a video game.
Yeah.
It looks like a creature from Resident Evil or something like that.
It's one of those where you're like, oh, these two big muscly guys are fighting each other. I don't know what's happening. And you don't care. And that's what bad CGI does. Or CG, whatever we want to call it. It takes you out of the movie and go, oh, yeah, I'm watching a movie.
Yeah. And I think this is much worse than the zombies.
This is.
The zombies are somewhere like borderline of like, do I think that's bad? Maybe. This is like...
If I was 8, I would think it was scary, maybe.
Sure.
You know?
This is basically unwatchable at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Dante's
worst one so
going
far.
to the peak.
Now to the top.
Dante's peak.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
Next, I'm going to throw out from the movie Spawn,
Malabolgia.
Yeah,
Malabolgia.
It's male Bolgia. Is how I in my
Just
brain.
like the guy in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
So Spawn is a comic book movie which came out a long time ago, and he's got this big ridiculous CG cape.
Giant. The cape alone could have been on this list.
And
It's
it
quite
kind of
bad.
is.
It is a little
But that movie came out in like what
97, 98.
Yeah, really. It was early
the
on.
cape
CGI.
gets a hard time just because it's so huge.
And so there is this villain called
97.
like the Violator, and it's John Leguizamo in like a sort of a goblin mode. And then there's a giant version of the Violator, and it's Malabolgia, and it's basically a Satan character.
Yeah, but it's like
It is like, if you played Doom 2, Zach, I know you have recently.
Yes.
It's a character that ripped straight out
For
of that
sure.
game.
And
Guys-
not only the character, but the entire world.
The entire
surrounding
world.
the
it's
Yes.
like a Roger Corman version of the Balrog from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
It's like this knockoff version. It does not look good.
I think because of the surrounding world and it just being so detached from the rest of the movie, I think this is the worst one yet.
It is the worst one, I would say.
What do you think, Joel?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys.
And we don't all have to agree, right? Like, we can talk about...
We have to come to a consensus at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we don't, I was going to say, if we don't come to a consensus, there has to be a tiebreaker. So, yeah.
For now, that is going to be the top of our pyramid. Now, from Mortal Kombat, Reptile.
Get over here.
Once again, it feels mean because this is a mid-90s movie.
Metal snake coming out of his arm, Kent.
I don't think this one is particularly bad, and I think I'm willing to give time.
Listen, you had Goro in that movie, and Goro was
a puppet.
Really good for the time.
Kind of did like the claymation thing with this movie.
But then you had Reptile, which was literally a lizard, and was a shiny, glossy, very computerized lizard.
Oh, we are talking about Reptile.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Scorpion and the metal snake coming out of his arm.
I mean, that's way better.
Which I never, in the video game, I never thought it came out of his hand. I always thought he had like a dagger in his sleeve that he threw out. So when it came out of his hand in the movie, I was like, wait,
yeah,
what?
no, it came out of his sleeve, right?
I think so.
I think we're talking about like
we're talking about
organic
Reptile.
shooters.
But
or
well, we talked about the cape with Spawn. You got to talk about all the CGI in the movie.
Yeah,
totally.
But
no.
Reptile was literally a little creature, a little green creature.
Were you mad when you saw this in 95 or whenever it came out? Did it take you out of the movie of Mortal Kombat?
A little bit until he fell into the statue and then became the reptile we all know and love. Yeah, it was pretty pathetic.
That was like a really sweet moment for you.
Yeah. For me, I would put this probably not above Melbodio from Spawn.
Bless you.
The demon from Spawn. This is the demon Spawn. I would put it just below that. I'd put it above Dante and below.
Yeah, it's pretty much tied with Dante. I'd put it probably below just for the time it came out. I don't think it's the worst. I don't think it should be
better
at
than the
top.
zombies.
It is better than the zombies.
Now we have The Langoliers.
Now, this is a Stephen King movie.
Does it count?
A made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, so it's made for TV, but I think we all know it's so egregious.
Well, I don't know how many people have seen it except for you and I. A plane is flying, and all of a sudden there's a flash, and it's in a place outside of time where there's no people, and they're all by themselves.
And there are meatballs with teeth.
Yes.
Flying meatballs with
Flying
teeth.
meatballs with teeth.
That eat time.
That
They eat the present.
They do.
Or the past, I should say.
They're the ones who eat the past.
Yeah. And if you get stuck in the moment, like you
You'll
two
get
said,
eaten.
you'll get eaten by these flying
It's
meatballs.
The flying meatballs. Literally, it's what they look like.
Yeah.
They open their mouths open up.
Wow.
That's not good. And it was pitiful. I thought the story was very compelling, and then when they showed up, I was like, wow, that looks like
Yeah. And then you see Balky screaming, and you're like,
Yeah.
also bad acting.
yeah.
But it's made for TV, so I almost don't want to give it like I don't want to be as harsh on this experience because they probably didn't have the budget.
It's not some big budget thing.
Yeah.
I think it is notable.
It is mid-90s as well.
It is notable in its terribleness, but it isn't given the same opportunities as these other movies.
I'm going to put it's worse than Reptile, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not the worst of all.
Yeah, I'd say above Zombies, below Reptile.
And Zach, you've never seen this movie, right?
No.
Never
I mean, I
watch it.
watched, because of this list,
clips.
I watched clips.
Yeah.
And I was...
Well, I'll be honest with
Shocked.
you. Their budget wasn't huge, so they don't show the Langoliers very much. So the scenes you saw, that's where all the money went.
And finally, we have The Scorpion King from The Mummy Returns. This is a pretty legendary piece of bad CGI.
Yeah, this is like when people talk bad CGI. This is almost always the cover image.
2001 or 2002?
The Mummy Returns or Scorpion King?
The Mummy Returns. Because the Scorpion King, he was not the CG character. It was
That's
a prequel.
right. This is 2001.
Okay.
And so The Mummy Returns is a movie where the mummy, he returns. It's got Brendan Fraser, yes.
Still hot. Rachel Weisz, still hot. Mm-hmm. I think this is a good movie. And then all of a sudden at the very end, and granted, it's not The Mummy. It's not the classic adventure movie,
No.
The Mummy.
No.
But it's still a good movie. And then they're like, hey, what about the legend? Because Imhotep wasn't enough of a villain. What about the legend of the Scorpion King? And it was when The Rock was just about to kind of leave wrestling, trying to be a big deal.
Yeah.
To the point where the people's eyebrow, like the whole smolder he had, was shown in this movie as he's a monster with a scorpion body.
Scorpion body with a human torso.
Yeah.
Human in quotes. Mm-hmm. Because when he comes crawling out...
And his scene is what? 2.5 minutes long.
But it's
In the dark.
notorious for being so bad. And the problem here comes in the fact that from Spawn,
Yeah.
he's a demon. He's otherworldly. You don't really have a frame of reference for what he's supposed
Yeah,
to look
he
like.
might actually look like that.
He might look like a cartoon.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But
We've been a little harsh on him, maybe.
But then you see Dwayne The Rock Johnson, or actually just probably The Rock back then, The Rock coming out, and it's just this like tight, plastic, shiny face
yeah.
that
Like
looks humanish.
someone put The Rock in a cup of Vaseline and he tried to pull faces that looked mean.
Yeah, that's the worst for me.
It's gotta be the worst.
Absolute
right?
worst. Yeah.
This is I actually really like this movie. I think
Yeah,
it's a well
right.
done movie, and even the first Mummy had some really kind of cool creature effects.
It did, yeah.
Imhotep with his giant mouth, and some of it is. I mean, it's not amazing, but I do think it still looks good, and it has a sort of style to it. This, like, what are you doing? They should have just literally made a CGI scorpion, and they would have been better.
Probably so.
Like the first shot where he comes down, it's like it's all dark and creepy, and you see the silhouette of it. You're like,
Yeah.
"Whoa! I didn't expect an actual scorpion. What is that?"
Because he's
They-
like a centaur scorpion.
Yeah.
And it's not scary anymore.
Or if it just would've been
easily-
him.
He could have worn like blue pants. Like they had the technology that didn't do blue screen. Why not just have him there instead of whatever that
We'll
was?
talk about that later because floating heads is also a big problem.
Okay.
That's true.
I'll get there. All right, are you ready for the monsters? Fearamid.
Yes.
Kent was coming up with other names. We never got there.
There's Nearamid, there's Gyramid, there's the Unclearamid.
oh,
Why is it Gyramid?
Cheers.
Like cheers and jeers.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And then the C Gyramid or C Gyramid.
okay. On the CGI Unclearamid, at the base we have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the bathroom troll.
Yep.
That's
very
the best
That's
of the worst.
best of this list. Okay,
I agree.
Worse than that, and moving up our pyramid, this is confusing. We have the I Am Legend zombies.
Yeah.
Not good, but good in comparison.
Absolutely.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Next, we have the Langoliers TV movie.
I disagree with this, but also doesn't matter in the scheme of things. I think Dante is actually better than Langoliers and Reptile, but still unwatchable. But it doesn't matter.
But we gave it a pass because it was a lower budget production.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we have Reptile.
Reptile.
A little bit worse. Moving up, but getting worse. Dante from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Then Malabolgia from Spawn.
Nicely done.
And the worst is the Scorpion King.
Okay.
He's
In
our
the- in
worst
this
monster.
pyramid, yes.
The peak of
The monster pyramid.
garbage pyramid.
So
Monster
if you're
Pyramid.
playing Mortal Kombat of bad CG, your boss in this game,
your final boss
is the Scorpion
Dwayne the Rock Scorpion.
I would play this game.
I actually would too. Sounds kind of fun. All right, moving on to the next category, we have animals.
Aw.
Our first option going right in the middle, and so we won't talk about it too much, more in comparison. We have the deer from The Ring 2. The weird deer that gather
and
around the car.
The reason I found out the reason that they had the deer so CGI. One, it's hard to work with animals, but two, also I guess around the time they were filming the real deer didn't have their antlers.
Oh, they were on strike.
Yeah, the deer's antlers were on strike, so they totally CGI'd the deer, and it is one of the most it's one of the most horrifying parts of that movie. And it's not because of any scary.
It's meant
scary happening.
Yeah. It's ironically horrifying, right?
Yeah.
In this scene, Rachel, the mom, and is traveling with her son, and her son is kind of possessed throughout this movie.
Yeah, by
and
Samara.
The deer are animals, and their instinct is to eliminate an evil force, and so they start ramming the car, and you see things through their eyes and stuff like that. It just doesn't work. It takes away all fear.
Yeah, there's nothing scary about this except for the CGI.
So mid range.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
mid-range for
starting to-
now. Better or worse, Sharknado.
Is this
Worse.
mean?
Worse.
Sharknado's worse.
Sharknado is worse because they know they were bad, and it's still bad. Like it's bad.
But is there any believability? Hold on. I
about
know.
flying sharks in a tornado? That's the plot of the movie, by the way.
Thank you very much. But there are some scenes that are like kind of funny when a shark lands on someone with an open maw and just like swallows someone, but then bounces off the textures. This movie is so bad.
It's
and it's
very bad.
meant to be bad.
It's meant to be bad, but at the same time, I hated it.
Yeah.
Like I know they were going for bad, but it still went below expectations.
Sharknado's worse.
Agreed.
Sharknado is worse than
it
the
goes
deer
above.
in The Ring 2. Birdemic.
Shock and horror.
Okay.
Birdemic is a movie about birds attacking people. Like it's Hitchcock if Hitchcock were on crack.
Yeah.
This is a movie. This is a student film made for $10,000.
Yes.
It's so low budget.
Are you giving it a pass because of that reason?
I am.
I'm not. You can't reuse that same graphic, the same GIF that they reused.
It is literally
nonstop.
a GIF. It's literally a GIF of a bird flapping its wings.
And then they duplicate it 7 times.
And they move it around like with a mouse.
And they try to attack it with a hanger. I know it was made for cheap, but this is in the Sharknado level of bad.
You don't give any credit to irony. You don't think there's irony here?
Well, because it's kind of a joke.
A little bit.
Like it's meant to be a B movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, use a puppet once in a while. Like really,
I think you guys are taking this more seriously than it was ever intended.
except for the fact that
They are taking the deer in the ring. They're taking it 1,000% seriously. And I don't think that same energy is put forth on Birdemic.
this director,
not, Joel,
it's not a real movie.
This director literally drove around Sundance with like blood and feathers all over his car with a bullhorn saying, "Birdemic, go see Birdemic."
But Joel, have
'cause it
you
wasn't
seen
allowed to
Birdemic?
Sundance.
Because
yes.
this movie is a joke.
Oh, horrible joke.
Like no, but it's meant to be tongue in cheek.
There's so bad it's good, and there's just bad. This is bad. This is the
But
worst.
Zack's kind of winning me over with the whole not meant to be a big budget experience.
Well, let's move on and see if anything beats it. But right now, it's at the tippy top. for me.
I think we already have stuff that beats it. I think Sharknado almost in the same category.
I think Sharknado
It's
could
made-
beat it.
It's made for
someone
TV.
tried with the sharks.
Okay, let's save it till the end. It's at the top right now, but
They
I
at
may
least-
put Sharknado.
I'll say
in.
they at least tried in Sharknado for the first one. They definitely didn't try after that.
Well,
But
we'll have
maybe
to save it for the
first
next
one.
experiment. We do the sequels.
They tried the
Sharknado.
hardest for the deer.
Yeah.
How about the original Sonic? Now, we didn't ever see this Sonic on the big screen.
This
Except
is
for
a
the
trailer.
trailers.
Only ever in trailers.
Ugly Sonic as you know him in Chippendales.
Horrifying.
Yes, if you don't know the story, they released the first trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog, the live action movie, and people went nuts because Sonic looked horrific. He has like humanoid teeth, tiny eyes. He did not look like Sonic the Hedgehog. People freaked out, and then the animators listened.
Yes.
and they made him look like Sonic the Hedgehog.
The impact of original Sonic puts him at the top of the list. There was such backlash
Except
at how
for-
this character looked.
But does it even count?
No, I don't think it's bad design. I don't think it's bad CGI. It's bad design. They made him look.
It is actually really good CGI.
He looked like Sonic, except for his facial features.
No, he looked like a blue character. He looked like the studios didn't know what
but he
Sonic
was,
looked
he was
like.
realistically there. in
Draw
the
him
sense
from
of-
memory.
But he was not poorly executed.
But he's horrifying.
He was poorly designed.
He's visually horrifying.
You can't get mad if the plans were wrong in the first place.
He was.
It's
but
someone drew
as
Sonic with their
CG
left hand. That's what happened
But
here.
as CG, the fur,
I'm
the
sorry.
eyes, the way he moves is not bad.
No, it is not.
See, and I think he is.
His
I think
character
if you
design
had to
is
watch
bad.
a 2-hour movie with wisecracks and all with this ugly character, this would not have been the success
It's an ugly
it is.
character.
But at the end of the day, it didn't happen. This character doesn't exist.
But because people hated the visuals so much.
Yeah. Well, but they fixed it, right? They didn't release this movie and then change it for the sequel. They never released this movie. This movie doesn't exist.
This is at the bottom for
This
me.
character doesn't exist.
Meaning it's the best version
The best so
of CG.
far, because
Oh,
I don't.
for
think,
me, it would be top.
I think the CGI wasn't bad. It was whoever came up with the idea of this is what Sonic should look like in real life was bad.
When he got scared by James Marsden and you go and see him go, ah!
I'm looking
Like-
at the picture literally right now.
It is so ugly. It's hideous. Anyways, you guys put it where you're going to put. I'm not going to fight for it because I hate ugly Sonic, but
It's not worse than Birdemic. It's not worse than Sharknado. I don't think it's as worse as The Ring 2 Deer.
Really?
I think it's worse than the deer.
I think it's
The
worse.
deer tried.
I think it's worse than the deer.
This is trying to adapt a character that didn't work out at all.
All right,
I'm gonna put him above the deer.
Okay.
For
Okay.
now. Okay. How about Garfield?
This is
Terrible
Bill Murray's
movies.
Garfield.
Bill
Yes, it's
Murray,
the
yeah,
live
the Bill Murray
action-
live action air quotes.
And this could happen a lot for just the uncanny animation with live action characters,
Yeah,
right?
but live action and
Can I
animation mixed together.
give some credit to A Tale of Two Kitties?
for the title,
Yeah, it's great.
but not the movie itself.
No, I don't like that movie.
But I don't think Garfield is egregious in CGI, other than it's just CGI with live
But
action.
it's like, does it stand out?
I struggle with this one, and the same way I struggle with the next one that I'll read, because this is a cartoon character. Even though it is in a live action world, it's still a cartoon
But
character.
shouldn't it kind of look more like a cat? It's too far into alien territory.
sure. Bottom of the pile for me.
It's not. There's nothing real about it.
Okay.
It's so far outside of
And
reality.
because it's a
it is-
kid's movie.
Because it is a cartoon character translated in CGI, there's some allowance there.
Okay.
Because compare this to Alvin and the Chipmunks, where there's a lot of cartoonness, but they actually do lean a little bit more real than Garfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Singing chipmunks, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy enough.
So this would be the bottom then.
Yeah.
I don't
Meaning
think
the
this is
best.
so bad. especially because it is coming from a cartoon.
Least egregious.
Similar story in my book to the next one. That's Scooby-Doo.
Scarier looking character, though.
A little bit of a weird character.
When he's
model.
a woman on the plane? That's messed up.
I give this movie, though, people in multiple scenes, I've seen people giving a hard time to Mary Jane getting hit in the face and being a monster and having a rubber face.
Yeah.
But it's a cartoon about people who wear masks to scare people as ghosts.
See, I think it's fine, but this about Scooby-Doo in particular, because I think the monster creation is kind of fun.
The monsters, as much as the CGI isn't amazing,
Right.
the character design is good. It's kind of the opposite of the Sonic that we talked about, where the character design is atrocious, but the execution of the art itself is not bad. I think that the character design is fun, but overall, Scooby-Doo, it's a little weird, but I think we didn't realize until this movie came out that Scooby-Doo was a Great Dane.
Oh, yeah.
And Great Danes kind of look weird.
I still didn't know that until today. So thank
Things
you.
we learned. The things we learn on Bacon.
So do you think this is, we'll just move up
This
the pyramid.
is worse
Better or
than Garfield, but better than most.
Worse than Garfield.
So I'd say it's second
Is
from
it
the bottom.
worse than the ring deer?
Better
No.
because of the cartoon argument.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree.
So it's pretty low on the pyramid.
Yeah.
Finally, we have Anaconda.
This
The
is a
giant
movie
snake.
about Jennifer Lopez and John Voight in the jungle.
Yeah. I could have put Anaconda 3 because they're obviously with Anaconda 3, people didn't even know there was a 2. The graphics are so bad in that
Anaconda
movie.
3 is really
but
bad.
no one saw the movie. And so we're just going to go with the first, which for its time was a thriller. But if you go back and watch it now, it is not aged well
The
at all.
snake dashes and darts in a way that makes it just it looks like that old snake game you used to play. It's just like hopping around the screen. I think it's not a great design. It's not a realistic or even terrifying at sometimes design because it's so cartoony.
Right. But for its time, in the late 90s,
But it's better than the Ring 2 deer. Anaconda is not called out for like, wow, that looked really bad the whole time.
You think that time is its biggest help?
saving grace.
Yeah, I think back in the day
probably.
when people watched this movie back in the day, I think they were terrified.
You couldn't watch it now and be like, oh, I'm worried about John Voight.
I think it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
But again, for the time, maybe we give it a pass.
It made almost 3 times its budget. The Anaconda movie, the original one.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure it didn't have much of a budget.
But I would put this below the Ring 2 deer.
so you don't think this?
I think
is you think the Ring 2 deer are worse?
So you're saying
Yes.
the Ring 2 deer because they soil a whole movie.
No, the movie was terrible anyway, and that was
Yeah.
just like, throwing salt on an already
But the
bad
movie's called Anaconda,
cake.
and that's what you're meant to be afraid of. I think it is worse than the Ring 2 deer, personally.
I also think it's worse because it's the feature thing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Like, yeah, that's it. And when you see it wrapped around, it's not scary to me.
No.
But granted, I didn't watch it at the time, but
terrified me.
is it all right if we put Anaconda above the Ring 2 deer?
Joel, are you okay with that?
Yeah,
I approve.
you guys make a good point that it is the main thing.
Yeah.
Whereas the Ring 2 deer, literally one scene, and everyone talks about it because it was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But according to our list, we're putting that below original Sonic. Does that feel accurate? All right.
Just because I'm trying to make such a case for it, and it's funny.
I think the case that, and I've already mentioned this.
Yeah.
I think the execution of the actual like rendering of a character is good, then again, the character never ended up hitting the screen. It's not a movie you can watch. You literally can't consume this.
Yeah.
Whereas Anaconda, you can still watch. Sharknado, you can still watch.
Yes. But I think because what they had to do to change an entire movie because the visuals were so ugly.
So
I'm sure
in
the
and of
blue,
itself,
the
fact-
blue spiny hair looked real or whatever.
So you're saying that
This is still a Garfield type movie.
It deserves to be near the top because it's so bad it didn't even come
Yeah,
out.
because it's like his distant cousin that lives in a double wide. Like
But
no
once
one wanted
again,
to watch.
I don't think it's the CGI. I think it's the design they were given.
Yeah, but you still wouldn't believe that James Marsden would befriend this ugly blue muskrat.
James Marsden, he likes ugly friends.
Are you going to look at that ugly blue muskrat and say that is better or worse than a tornado full of sharks?
It is better.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. We're arguing about the middle.
We have Birdemic and Sharknado at the top right now. And Joel, you think Birdemic is worse because
Horrible.
Visually, it is worse.
It's
Like
awful.
if we're going literally, does
And
it
that
look
stupid
worse?
sound effect they keep playing.
Oh man.
Okay.
Bird noises.
I'm going to say Birdemic is absolutely unwatchable. Therefore, it should go to the top.
Okay, perfect. That makes
Does
it
that work
easy.
for you guys?
That works.
All right. So moving from the base on up, from least worst
Yes.
to worst, Garfield, Scooby-Doo, the Ring 2 Deer, Anaconda, the original design of Sonic, Sharknado, and the Birdemic.
Is the worst.
This show's so weird.
This is so weird. There's your animal. What? Not so Fearamid? What did you call it?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Sure. Now let's look at some specific action scenes in movies. This will take a little bit of explaining on your part. But for example, we're going to start with the final fight in the movie Black Panther.
Everyone loved Black Panther, right? 2018.
Yeah.
T'Challa gets the powers of
Yeah.
the Black Panther and just fights crime in Wakanda.
But what soils that movie? The rhinos look horrible.
The rhinos at the end, and then the final confrontation between
Killmonger
and
Black
No. Between Gold Panther and Purple Panther.
Thank you.
Those actors were
Sponsored
not in
by
that scene at all.
PlayStation 2.
They were in a recording booth going,
Get over here.
This movie will be talked about later, but it's a worse version of Tron. Because they literally have their suits with their little lights that signify who they are.
How crazy. This movie was made for a ton of money, and it did make a ton of money, but it was so embarrassing to get to the climax of the movie and go, oh, okay.
The CGI in this movie collectively is not bad. They do a really good job with the world.
I agree.
All of that, the Wakanda itself is quite beautiful and good CGI. But yeah, this final fight is just is bad. We haven't really talked about it much, but this is really where we get into physics.
Yes.
Because the previous ones were kind of just character models, but here we see characters in movement, and our brains know when something's wrong. That's what that sort of uncanny valley.
Or the limbs get a little too skinny or something like that.
Or the jumps aren't right, or they don't land right, and this is where we start to see that. You have loads of this in Black Panther. The way that they staged this was very confusing. And this is a strong candidate, but it's the only one we've talked about.
There we go.
Far, so it goes in the middle. Next up, going against that, what a wonderful action scene. So good, it rebooted an entire franchise. It's the ice surfing found in 2002's Die Another Day.
Now, we did talk about this on our James Bond episode a little bit, in passing reference almost. But the CGI is one of the many things that was the downfall of this movie. But to set the scene for you, James Bond is on this iceberg near an ice hotel where he was staying in an ice bed. It's not the point. But then there's an avalanche and he falls. He's in like a rocket car, is it? And falls off the edge. But he grabs the hood of the rocket car.
There's a giant satellite that's a laser of sunlight.
Yeah.
It cuts off a good chunk of a glacier.
I like that you guys think you're explaining this movie.
Then there's a giant ice wave.
Okay, so yeah, a big chunk of the iceberg falls down in the ocean. James Bond takes the lid of this car and then grabs a parachute from the back of the back of the
Because
car.
it was like a rocket car.
Yeah, and then he just surfs down the tsunami.
Yeah.
As it's barreling down there.
And the worst thing they could have done is add blocks of ice into the water.
Oh, they sure did.
They did. And they added a lot of them. And honestly, I actually don't know if this is CGI.
Or
they may have just reused the set from Happy Feet.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Here's the problem with me. You're explaining this, and I hear the score in my head because I've seen this movie many times.
Yeah.
I love it, but this is bad.
Yeah, it's so bad. It really is like it's animation level bad.
This bad green screen,
Okay.
paired with Pierce Brosnan's bad effort face.
But it was made a while ago.
2002?
There is a person in this scene that you can see, and it's already in a bad movie.
No.
It didn't ruin the movie. Whereas Black Panther, all of a sudden you're like, where did that come from?
No, this literally the ice surfing ruined the movie, Kent.
Are you sure?
There's a lot of bad before it. That pushed it over the ice cliff. Die Another Day is definitely
So you're
worse.
saying it is worse.
It is worse than Black
looking
Panther.
than two rubber cat suits fighting each other.
I think that the cat suits are worse
No,
because
no.
they came out 16 years apart.
I don't think.
and they look the same.
Truthfully, I don't think people hate that scene as much as you two do.
Check the internet. Internet never lies.
I think more people laughed at ice surfing and the ridiculousness of it all than
Well,
Black
let's
Panther
talk about
fight.
the actual.
You're saying Diamond
design,
Face,
though.
that movie with Diamond Face, and the Madonna song wasn't already ruined?
I'm saying it was precariously perched. On the edge.
Okay.
Are we mad at the ridiculousness of the idea or the actual execution of the design?
See, I think the idea, because Triple X, Xander Cage, Vin Diesel movie was out, and they wanted to go for younger audiences, and so Die Another Day try to compete with that. And I think the concept is so dumb, and that's what I'm going to have to blame this on. But I think Black Panther failed spectacularly with a giant budget. I'm saying it's slightly worse.
I'm saying ice surfing is worse.
Okay, I'll have to think about it. Next up, we have Monkey Swinging from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
All right, 2008.
Yeah. King of the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones rides again, not for the last time anymore.
Yeah, it's during the jungle chase. Shia LaBeouf gets caught up on a tree.
He's riding. He's standing on top of a car. A vine picks him up, lifts him up. I don't know, 80 feet, and then he decides to start swinging. And then all the monkey friends join him.
Like literally monkey friends.
Yeah.
Come this way, and they catch up to the cars.
Once again, physics don't exist here.
Do they do a?
They do.
They do that.
I'm pretty sure they do.
And he ends up moving as fast as cars that are speeding through the jungle.
Is it kind of endearing how bad this scene is, though?
No, it is not.
To say that, but then say that the
But is it
ice surfing is not endearing.
But
Yeah.
is
They're
it the
the
scene
same
or
in
is
my
it the
mind.
CGI? Because the scene is ridiculous. But is the CGI as bad as ice surfing? I'd say no.
So the concept is worse than the CGI?
Yes.
I actually think that's the same case on the ice surfing. The concept is what the problem is.
That seems so James Bond.
Conceptually, there's no problem with the Black Panther fight.
I would put that as the best one so far. The monkey swinging is the best one so far. I'd put it near the bottom.
Really?
Yes.
See, I would put Black Panther at the bottom.
See, Black Panther's still top for me. Very controversial.
I'm gonna put Crystal Skull on the bottom.
Okay.
My goodness.
Baconsale sort of approved on this show. Everything is
Next-
like, yeah, that's all bad.
Next is the Matrix Reloaded, the Burly Brawl.
This is the second Matrix movie. Second?
Yes.
Yes. They had all our names. It got confusing for me. This is when there's a ton of Agent Smiths fighting Neo.
The concept is amazing.
Because they're in a computer program.
Yeah.
Agent Smith replicates himself a bunch of times, and they all go against this really powerful
Because
foe.
Neo is the most powerful. He is the chosen
the
one.
one.
And then, so who can beat him? Not one Agent Smith. 150, essentially.
And for a while there, it looks good. Like,
Do you think it's the slow motion pull that makes it worse? Because then you see the rubber faces.
Yes.
I watched this movie recently, and I remember for the first couple minutes of that scene, I was like, "Why do we give this such a hard time?" And then it goes off the rails.
when they
and it
start
is
coming out at the
bad.
beginning and like just one at a time kind of start coming in there,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this is fun.
The score is awesome for this
it's
scene, though.
fantastic.
Oh yeah,
And it's crazy because this movie has one of the best, we may talk about a future show, but one of the best movie car chases. And
Yes.
it looks very real, but this scene is so poor. It's so rubbery.
And this came out 2003.
2003.
So Lord of the Rings era. This is ALR.
I'm going to give this, for me, it's not the best, but it's near the best. I think monkey
Really?
swinging still looks the best.
I see. I would say this is my top.
Is it
This
the worst?
The worst.
Joel, what about you? This is worse than Black Panther for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
because this is so laughable. This is laughably bad.
This to me, there's emotion behind this scene that's pretty awesome, and I almost forgive it for how bad it looks.
And some
But
of
like
when he's swinging,
yes,
like the concrete, that looks cool.
But then when he's running around on the pole, it looks so bad.
I know.
So I got to put
The
this,
way that they're flying around.
So you're like in the
rubber.
middle.
This
Are you
is,
in the
this
middle?
is a mid level for me.
Okay.
But I think
Okay,
this is. I think this
it's
is
not the worst.
worse than Kingdom of the Crystal Monkey swinging. I think it's worse than Black Panther. I don't think it's worse than Die Another Day.
Okay.
Our last one for this is The Hobbit. Legolas. I call it Legolas falling up. Because he pushes himself off of stairs as they're falling down.
We could almost say all of the Battle of the Five Armies, which is so sad because the Lord of the Rings trilogy, there's so much practical effects. And then we have a very CG enhanced trilogy with The Hobbit, except for Smaug. I think Smaug is absolutely incredible.
But even Legolas, just
You mean his face?
just Orlando Bloom.
Like looking slightly younger or older, we're not really sure.
It really is like you watch it and it's they're trying to go with this elvish thing. But
This scene in particular, he's on like this bridge or this pillar and it gets knocked out from under him.
yeah, there's nothing underneath him,
There are falling blocks, and because he's an elf, he's very agile.
and he literally runs on top of them like a video game. Runs on top of each stone.
A
to
quick
get
time
up the thing.
event of sorts.
It is supposed to look really cool, but I think everyone kind of went, that's not how physics works.
It's jarring.
It looks bad.
It is jarring.
But artistically, it's not bad.
No, I don't think the CGI. Once again, I don't-
This is literally just a problem with physics.
yeah, I don't think the CGI is bad as much. Well, I mean, Legolas does look weird in the Hobbit trilogy. He really does. So I would put this probably at the bottom.
You think it's the best?
I think this is the best example of CGI in this
I'll
group.
agree with you.
This is where we need to decide. This is where we sit right now. You tell me if this feels accurate. The bottom of the pyramid, therefore the best. The Hobbit, Legolas falling up.
Sure.
Then Shia LaBeouf swinging through the vines.
All winners.
Then the Black Panther fight. Then the Matrix Reloaded brawl.
With Agent Smith fight.
I would move that down. I think The Matrix is mid.
No.
The worst one being Die Another Day.
No.
Ice surfing.
Yes.
I think it's between Die Another Day and Black Panther.
No.
With the technological advancement that Black Panther should have been, how is it that bad?
Zach, you have to be the tiebreaker here because Ken and I are not agreeing.
Okay. I really actually like that argument, Kent. Black Panther should be better than it is. I think Matrix Reloaded and Die Another Day, they're early 2000s movies. Black Panther doesn't have an excuse. It's a giant movie.
It's not as bad as you guys are making it out to be.
It's pretty bad. It's a 15-minute scene compared to a 3-minute scene.
It's pretty bad, but it's
Right?
not as bad as you guys are making it out to be.
But nobody wanted to reboot the franchise after it. So I'm going to say that Die Another Day, Ice Surfing.
Oh, you betrayed James Bond.
I did. What do you think, Joel?
Okay, I'm good with that. With Die Another Day on top.
So Die Another Day is at the top, followed by Black Panther, then Matrix Reloaded. That's our top 3 of the pyramid.
in the action scenes.
Okay. Now let's talk about superheroes.
There's a lot of superheroes in this entire list, by the way.
There are,
Because the money
but-
spent on these movies, you're meant to see a spectacle. And sadly, it's a disaster.
Yeah. We'll move through this one fairly quickly because it is essentially the main characters in most of these.
Yeah.
So let's start with one of the more infamous, the Green Lantern suit. Green
And we
Lantern,
can talk
Ryan
about
Reynolds.
Parallax, which is like the gas cloud monster.
Which is funny because we used to get after Ryan Reynolds for being in an all CGI suit.
Yeah.
Most of the suits you see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now are CGI.
It was just ahead of its time, and frankly, if they had just had a practical mask, I don't think anybody would care.
It's the mask.
It's the
mask
mask
ruins
that
everything.
yeah, over his eyes. Yeah.
Because it does make his body look really like a little too lean, and the fact that the Green Lantern suit is a light, essentially, it kind of ruins the experience. It's supposed to look fake, but everything looks fake in this movie.
I don't think that the suit looks that bad. I think the art design's kind of interesting,
Okay,
but the mask kills me.
but right now it's mid.
Right now it's mid. All of these are mid. Next we have Hulk. This is Ang Lee's Hulk.
So
Yes,
we can
and
talk
the
about
Hulk
the Hulk
dogs.
We can talk about the Hulk. We can talk about the Hulk dogs.
I don't know why people don't like it.
What are you
I
talking
think
about?
it looks great.
It does not look
I
great.
think it still looks great.
What?
Because this is a comic book movie. It literally has comic book panels all throughout it.
No,
He's
look-
this bright, colorful character, and you do not get that in Marvel movies anymore. He actually has, he is literally bright green and has purple pants. And people like trash on this all the time. He looks fine.
He looks like a doofus. It's bad.
The dogs are bad.
The dogs are very
the
bad.
dogs are bad. I still think Hulk looks okay. I don't
Yeah,
like, I don't
especially
like
for
the movie.
2003.
Oh yeah, I don't like the movie.
I
but
think this Hulk looks better than the Edward Norton Hulk.
Oh,
But not better than
so
the Mark Ruffalo
wrong.
Hulk.
Because then we actually get aggressive Hulk and the Incredible Hulk. I think Professor Hulk is the worst one for me. But
Yeah.
yeah. Oh wow, this is a show all in itself. Yeah, I hate the design. The Hulk dogs are dumb. This is
The Hulk dogs are really dumb.
worse than Green Lantern for
because
me.
of the Hulk dogs, I think they're dragging it down. So
I
worse
agree
than
with you.
Worse than Green
I
Lantern.
agree with you. What about MODOK from Ant-Man Quantumania?
I truly believe this is one of those. The budget got spent elsewhere, and they had to just scrape something together.
So MODOK is the character played by Corey Stoll. Is Yellow Jacket in the first Ant-Man. He ends up in the quantum realm, and he gets kind of like stretched and shrunk at the same time, where his face is really wide and he's got little legs and a little bums and little arms.
Yeah.
And it's the face. It gives George Lopez and Shark Boy and Lava Girl vibes.
Yeah.
Basically,
Well, and I really think
which is not on this list because it's purposely bad.
Yeah, Spy Kids is a stylized thing.
Yeah.
I think they did it for comedic effect, and I laughed when he first appeared.
And then
But I think they leaned into it because they were like, we don't got a budget. Okay, let's make this look bad. So I think it's intentionally bad.
this
a point.
This helped ruin the movie for me. I couldn't look at the screen.
It is an accurate character design based on the comics. It's one of those. This is one of those things that I point to whenever anybody says it's not comic accurate. I remind people comics are dumb a lot of the time, but it works in that medium. When you put it on live action, it doesn't work. So it is actually a pretty accurate translation.
For
it's
look,
distracting.
yes,
It's
just horrifying.
shouldn't have been in the movie.
Yeah.
Something should not be made into live action.
So you're saying one of the better ones because
Is it worse than Hulk Dogs?
I think so. Once again, because of the Hulk dogs they're in the dark a lot, aren't they?
They are.
Whereas MODOK is bright.
It's
and
like a
sunny
woods
in your
fight
face
scene.
the whole time. There,
So it
It's-
would, as of now, be the top of our pyramid.
Yes.
Okay. Even though you're giving it a break,
I'm not giving it much of a break.
but a little bit. Now, another more recent movie from Thor, Love and Thunder, which generally just had some pretty poor CGI, but specifically the floating communication heads, Axel.
Yeah, Axel's one of the kids that gets kidnapped by Goro, or whatever his name is, the God Butcher.
Yeah.
And he's trying to communicate with Thor and saying, come save us. And basically, like, this brown cloud just appears, and his face shows up, and it's like, is this a joke by Taika Waititi? Like, is this meant to be funny? But then
this was so bad it got like an update when it hit streaming.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
To make it look slightly better.
There is a different version in streaming than was in theaters because it was just generally panned. I think this is really, really bad. This is like Snapchat filter bad. The lowest effort of almost anything.
But it's a very short scene. Like, for you, would this be, considering we have MODOK as the worst, it is worse looking than MODOK? Truly? But it's shorter.
It matters less.
But have you guys ever communicated in that way before? Maybe that's what it looks like in real
Not
life.
yet.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. I how about versus Hulk Dogs?
It's worse than Hulk Dogs.
Joel?
This is a 2022 movie that looks worse than a 2003 movie.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
I mean, the screaming goats.
It should have looked better.
I mean, everything.
Hulk Dogs are bad, but that should have looked better.
Yes.
All right. We will put them above.
Hulk Dogs, but below MODOK.
Okay. Now, this is one. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Wolverine's claws.
So Wolverine's claws are so inconsistent in the movies. In one, I'm not saying in the first movie. I'm just saying in a movie they look great, and the next movie they look terrible, and then they look okay again, and then they look bad.
They typically look good because a lot of the times they're practical.
Yeah,
he is literally.
He really put claws in his hands.
They have a really cool device that is just he holds it in his fist and it goes right up against his knuckles and it looks awesome.
Yeah,
and they use a little bit of CGI to if there's a gap or something to fix that.
But we all remember the scene. He's in the farmhouse and he looks in the mirror. Yeah, and he's like just been tested on, and all of a sudden, shink,
clanks them
shirk,
together.
Snicked. What's the sound? Shink, snirked. And he sees his claws, and it's Roger Rabbit all of a sudden.
It's really, and then he cuts the sink.
Yes,
and that just falls off with no weight.
And
to
it's
it.
crazy because
strange.
This was the fourth X-Men at the time.
They should have known how to do it.
They had done it well in the other movies. Also, later in the movie, we see him chopping up a ladder into just pieces, and it is so strange. I think this, to me, this is the worst.
Because it's like legacy is so poor.
It's
like, what did you do? You had the formula. Why'd you mess with it?
Worse with time.
I'm going to straight up agree with you because MODOK belongs in the quantum realm. He's so ugly, right?
And the quantum realm's kind of weird. You can make a logical yada yada to get away from it.
But I think the claws, you have an actual human in Hugh Jackman and then cartoon claws.
I'm not saying there's good CGI in 2000's X-Men, that first one. There's some really wonky stuff, especially around the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, when he flies around the spike.
Yeah, spinning around the Statue of Liberty. That still looks better than Wolverine, which came out years later.
I don't fully agree with you, but I'm not going to argue against you.
Okay.
Finally, we have from Infinity War, Bruce Banner in the Hulkbuster suit.
So we're not saying Tony Stark in the Hulkbuster suit.
No.
In that scene.
So like the whole Hulkbuster suit, didn't they show that? Was it... What movie was that? Was it Civil War?
No, because Hulk wasn't in
No, I think it was
War.
Ultron, isn't it?
No, it's he wore a giant suit in one of the... Oh, it's Ultron. You're right.
Ultron. He's like, do slave.
Where the big suit looks cool. They've always pulled off Iron Man suits really well.
Yeah. But then they do this scene in Infinity War when...
I hate the arc
Bruce
entirely.
ends up wearing the Hulkbuster suit because he can't turn into Hulk.
Oh, I hate that so much.
And so then... The suit shows up, and literally there's like a floating Mark Ruffalo head being like, hey, guys, I'm in a booth right now. But he doesn't say that, but that's what it looks like. And
you're right. He
bad.
really is floating. Like he's like in a kiddie pool. Like he's in Jell-O in the suit.
Yeah.
It
doesn't work.
It ruins the look of the suit, which is a cool looking design. And I already hate Mark Ruffalo's face.
Whoa.
This, for me...
because he's holding two goldfish in his mouth.
Yeah, basically.
At all times.
He's so smug,
That's Eddie Redmayne.
This is near the top being worst for me. I just don't know if it's as bad as the Wolverine claws.
Joe,
no.
Do you think it's bad as MODOK?
No, because once again, it's brief. It's one of those things you're like, well, that was stupid, but then it goes away.
I mean, it's like 10 minutes.
Then he
it's
puts the
10
helmet
minutes
on.
during a climactic battle.
Doesn't he put the helmet on after that, or does
No.
he keep it off the whole time?
Well, he gets knocked down, and so he just complains.
Yeah. But I think this is probably better than MODOK, so in the middle there.
Okay.
I think it's probably a good place for him. He's not consequential to the overall happenings.
I hate his arc so much.
Oh, it's a dumb arc. but it's just one of many
Save it
things
for
that
our
are
arc
happening.
tiering show.
Okay, so
Noah,
tier
yeah.
1.
Uh-huh.
We at the
Indiana
bottom,
Jones.
Joan of?
Yeah.
at the bottom of our pyramid. Therefore, the least worst. Green Lantern. What the heck?
Surprising.
Way to
Really?
go.
Are we
Surprising.
sure about that?
Even with the mask, no, I think we may have got that wrong. I think the Hulk dogs are better.
No, I'm okay with it. Let's
Okay.
keep it there.
Okay. Then the Hulk dogs from Ang Lee's Hulk. Then the floating head from Thor: Love and Thunder. Then the floating head from Infinity War in the Hulkbuster suit.
And then
Then the floating head from Quantumania with MODOK. And then the floating claws
Yeah.
of X-Men Origins Wolverine are the
Being the
worst.
worst, okay.
I remember even back then, the first thing I said was the CGI in that movie is so bad.
Yeah.
So I think that's deserving.
Yeah.
Now we have our people category. This is kind of a shorter category. So we're going to start with a real banger from Twilight, Breaking Dawn, Part 1, Renesmee.
So they wanted to make this. Oh, so the story of Twilight is, vampire. A girl falls in love with a vampire, and there's a werewolf.
Full episode about it.
Whole thing. Yeah, we did a whole episode on it. But this is their child, who in the book Renesmee, who's supposed to be like
Worst name ever.
The baby is super aware because it's a hybrid human vampire.
Yeah.
And it's essentially born old.
Yeah.
So they take the young...
Not like Benjamin Button old.
No, but like they take the face of the young actress that they have play her in Part 2, and she's like, what, 10?
Yeah.
And they take her face and superimpose it onto the baby. It's like a really bad deep fake.
It's very bad.
And totally unnecessary.
And
it's so weird.
It falls in love with Jacob the werewolf and
But
vice
then-
versa.
Stop, you.
that first time that Bella holds the baby, it looks
Yeah.
at her knowingly, and then lifts up a weird CGI hand and touches Bella's face.
And they have
It
two versions
is
because the baby
jarring.
does age in Part 2. Because that's like the end of Part 1. It's like Jacob's like, I'm in love with the baby.
It's a musical?
It should be.
It is such-
And then Part 2, she ages when she's like 3, just as horrendous.
Just as bad.
She's like a reborn doll.
It is so refreshing when she finally reaches that 10 or whatever
Yeah.
she is. When it's,
It's
like,
still
that's
weird.
just her.
It's still weird, but that's the story.
Okay, that's where we're at right now.
Can we just put that at the top right now?
That is a bad start. Mm-hmm. But his is also really bad. From Justice League, this is Joss Whedon's Justice League, Superman's face.
Previous to 2017, Jake and I used to have this joke where we're like, hey, go to Google right now and look up ugly Henry Cavill. And you won't find a single picture that matches that search because he's beautiful in every single image. And then Joss Whedon came around and said, hey, I'm doing reshoots for Justice League because Zack Snyder's not available anymore. So, hey, everyone come back. Henry Cavill, come back to the movie. And Henry Cavill says, I'm doing Mission Impossible Fallout, and I need to keep this mustache. I cannot shave it. And so he goes, that's fine. Just film it with your mustache. And then they covered up the mustache with CG.
Yeah.
Just this whole bottom jaw layer that they planted on his face.
It looks so bad.
And
And it's right at the beginning of the movie.
I
And throughout.
I want to see either the pictures of him in the suit.
Oh, have you not seen it?
With the mustache, or
It's actually really cool looking.
with if they did put green screen over his lips or something
Yeah.
like that. I have never seen the picture.
No, yeah, he looks cool. Superman with a mustache.
Okay.
Looks like a super Tom Selleck.
Nice.
The fact that this is what the movie opens with bad.
It's that YouTube
cell
video
phone
clip. Yeah.
footage, and his mouth looks like he's on the verge of a stroke.
Well,
One side's lower.
I didn't know the backstory behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as his face went up, I went, something is wrong there.
But I am really grateful for these scenes because then, I mean, before the Snyder Cut was out, you knew what Joss Whedon retouched in this movie because it had ugly Superman. And honestly, it's most of Henry Cavill's scenes in this version.
outside of him waking up and beating up the Justice League.
Yeah.
That's all.
Because
normal.
even when he flies back to the Smallville house, you see his face and he's smiling at Lois, and it's horrifying.
But is it as bad as Renesmee? I say no.
Because they ruin his face?
I don't know.
I say it's worse than
I
Renesmee.
say it's worse.
It's worse?
I
Okay.
say it only because Renesmee, once again, you've never seen a hyper-aware baby before. So it's like that kind of that
So
looks terrible.
it's more just, it's kind of a creepy thing.
But they didn't know what they were doing, is what I mean. They're like, how do we make this work? Maybe
Why is the
this.
baby so fuzzy?
But we've seen Henry, I don't know, but we've seen Henry Cavill's face,
And he's beautiful.
and they made it ugly.
How?
And I will not
That is-
forgive them for
that is
that.
quite
It's the most
They did
egregious.
to my boy.
You know who else
Look what they
is
did to my boy.
You know who else is beautiful? Arnold Schwarzenegger.
This one's really interesting.
In Terminator Salvation, it was
Which one is Salvation, Joel? Because this is really confusing.
Is that the one with Christian Bale?
that
Yes,
is the
it is.
Christian Bale
Okay.
one.
So at the end of the movie, so this actually takes place post Judgment Day.
Yes.
You have an older John Connor. he's working with a Terminator, a good Terminator, like they always do. And then I'm trying to remember the movie, but is there just one T-800 in the Arnold suit, or are there many Arnolds?
I think there are many T-800s, but only the one is actually Arnold.
The action scene with him takes place in the dark.
Yes.
And
it's dark. It's very smoky, especially around his
Yeah.
smoky parts.
Yeah. Which is crazy because when they show the T-800s, like the actual robots during the day, they look pretty cool.
Well, the robots themselves, the robot version of the T-100 looks good.
But Arnold here is very rubberized.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's in the dark. They obscure it well enough that it's the best one so far.
I don't think it's all that bad. It is a little weird, but it's not that bad. The problem with this is almost the opposite of the Renesmee thing. We have reference.
Yes.
We know what he's supposed to look
Yeah.
like because we've seen the other movies, but it's not too bad.
Are we giving points to movies if they film something in the dark or in the rain, which is a definite cheat for CG?
But they know their weaknesses and they're shying away from.
I think
Yeah.
them trying to mask it, whether
And they
it's
do.
with the quick cuts or whatever. They know.
Okay.
No, it's the exact same when older people try to do fight scenes and they have lots of quick cuts.
What
Liam
about
Neeson.
what about in broad daylight and there's just a bunch of babies in a hospital
Falling out a window.
falling out of a window
In a microwave.
and being thrown into microwaves
That dings.
like we saw
The
in
microwave
Flash.
dings.
It dings.
Not even plugged in.
No, so The Flash, it just came out, and really, there's so many parts. of this we
Actually,
could
this
talk
whole
about.
show is sponsored by The Flash.
Yeah,
Because
it really did.
his face appears at one point looking through the Speed Force.
In this
and
floating
it's
head?
just as bad as the Thor one.
There is a whole entire, without spoiling anything, there's a whole entire section that looks back at the history of DC, and that's just all awful.
Yep. Well, anytime he goes into the Speed Force, it is awful. It is absolutely awful.
There's a shot of a character that may or may not have had a mustache earlier on this list who looks awful.
It's his final appearance in the DCEU, and it is an abomination.
Yeah,
This whole movie-
the Terminator Salvation from years prior looks way better than any CGI.
But here's the
in
thing.
this.
We've seen, okay, so the Flash is a speedster. He's basically jumping through the air and off things to save these babies. Could be a very comical scene, but it's so distracting because these babies are so uncanny. But we've seen movies like Days of Future Past stop time and freeze people. It's the photorealism where they make someone freeze and they maybe adjust how they're moving or something. But we've seen people look like that. Why couldn't they just have babies' faces? Why were they so fake?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't get it.
I mean, that's this whole movie.
as this movie kicked off and that part happened, I remember thinking, what kind of movie is this? Like, what are they going for here? Is this supposed to look like this? I think many babies is worse than one babies. Therefore, I'm putting this above Renesmee.
But below Henry Cavill?
Below Henry Cavill. Because once again,
Are you sure?
But but what about the Flash versus Henry Cavill's weird upper lip and bottom jaw?
I still, something about the Superman face just was so off-putting to me.
I mean, it's not a great movie, but it really does ruin the movie.
Yeah.
So we're going to say Henry Cavill is still above.
Barely. Many babies.
Okay.
Many falling babies.
That's bold choice. Finally, this is out there in left field, but we have to talk about it.
Because it's people, but it's animation in a way.
It's Lawnmower Man.
Now,
this is
came
legendary.
This came out in 1992 when the world was just learning about computers. And they go into this virtual reality landscape. So it's supposed to be a little animated, but it just looks bad. And one of the characters, as he becomes more and more involved in the virtual reality world and starts controlling his surroundings, turns into kind of a demon.
Do you think it accomplished the virtual reality world in 1992?
No.
You think it was even bad back then?
I think, well, okay, you know how movies a lot of times will overcompensate with computers and show them doing things that are nowhere near what computers can
Yeah,
do?
right.
That's what I think they did here, and it still looks terrible. It's like this was not what virtual reality looked like, but it also looks better now.
I love how the 90s did this so much. Like Johnny Mnemonic tried a whole bunch of like computer effects for traveling and stuff. It's just so bad. I'm just trying to decide if it's worse than ugly Henry
We have
Cavill.
been giving a time, handicap, as
Yes.
it were.
Yes,
to
a
these.
time of grace.
I think it's really bad. But
It is absolutely, and it's a horrible movie.
It's considered a pioneer, though.
Yeah. I can't hate on it too much.
Even though you hate the movie.
I hate the movie.
Yeah.
But 1992 graphics they were trying their best. However, this is 1 year away from Jurassic Park.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So that also makes me go, wait a minute.
I think it's still bad. This is definitely, for me, worse than the T-800 in Terminator Salvation.
Yes, definitely. Is it worse than Renesmee?
I don't think it's worse than Renesmee, though.
Renesmee came out of nowhere, though. For such a big movie, it can't be near the best
No.
in this category.
No, it cannot.
Right in the middle.
Between the babies?
Yeah, between the babies. Don't put a lawnmower man between the babies.
Yeah, okay. Let's make that mistake. There's no winning here with any of these. These are all bad.
All right, Zach, what do we got?
All right, moving from the bottom up, we have the T-800 from Terminator Salvation. We've got Renesmee from Breaking Dawn, Lawnmower Man, then the Flash Babies, and the worst CGI in our people category is Superman's face.
Because it should have been simple.
Yeah.
And it just, they didn't do it right.
You know what's easier than CGI? Just
Shaving?
fake mustaches.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
All the
That's
time.
what I'm saying, Henry Cavill. Why not shave?
He
And
did the
then-
right thing. He did the right thing. That was integrity. Keep your mustache for the better movie. Justice League reshoots were an abomination.
Save it for our mustache cheering show.
Number one.
I actually have a mustache Mount Rushmore. We should definitely do that show. All right, now we have the uncanny animation category. This is kind of a short one. Only a couple options here.
Okay.
We're starting with Blue Will Smith from Aladdin.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the CGI in Aladdin is not bad, but there is just something about Will Smith's face.
Like, obviously, the genie is meant to move in ways that break physics, right? Because
Yeah,
he's
sure.
just kind of a big gelatinous genie.
why does his face move independently of his head, though?
That's what's weird.
Whereas in the last category, that was more kind of realistic. People put in realistic situations or realistic people in virtual reality. This one is more everything is kind of hyper animated, surreal.
And the movie was like, I think they caught on. They're like, we're going to cut those scenes down and we're just going to have Will Smith with a ponytail. Like, it's just going to be him,
Yeah.
not in blue.
It's a better idea.
Yeah,
Ugh.
it would have been.
This was horrifying. But is it as bad as Jabba the Hutt from the Star Wars Special Edition?
Thank you.
Specifically,
Why did they do this?
the early one. Because they do
Can we
update
just
him.
say any update?
But they update Jabba a couple of times. Like with the 2004 DVD release, they made him a little better.
This is the thing where we're talking about where him and Han. This is a deleted scene in the original movie where him and Han are having a conversation just outside the Millennium Falcon, I believe.
Yes.
And they have this whole thing where Han Solo is circling because back in the original concept, Jabba was just a dude in like a black furry outfit.
Yeah.
And he was just talking to him like normal. And they decided, nah, let's make him a space
That's why I said, Jabba, you're a wonderful human being, or whatever.
something like that.
Yeah.
But in this one, he's like circling this actor, and so in this movie, they do this weird thing where okay, we're going to put Jabba in there now. We're going to replace the guy and put a big slug there, and then as he's walking around, they CGI Han Solo awkwardly kind of going up and down because he had to walk over the tail, and then Jabba's eyes go. Brrr.
Delivering the same lines that he delivered to Greedo because the scene had been cut.
It's so awful.
It's bad. Is it worse
Yes.
than... Yes,
Yep.
it is.
Yes, it is.
And so
Absolutely it is.
unnecessary.
If you can find the early version, so
Yeah, the VHS.
it'd be the
I have it.
VHS release.
I have the
course you do.
DVD of the
It
original
is
theatrical version.
Nice.
It's slimy, but not in the way it should be.
Yeah, I think Jabba the Hutt was a fantastic puppet.
The character
on
design
his
of Jabba is
stand.
great.
And then I don't think they should have ever taken him off that. This was a mistake to put this in there.
Yep.
What about just everything in Cats?
I like that we didn't want to pick one scene. How about we limit it though?
Okay.
To only the Jellicle scenes.
Jellicle Cats.
I'm talking that's most of the movie because they're all
Yeah,
about
okay.
Jellicle cats.
Rebel Wilson. Her song alone. I'm having nightmares about it.
Well, but they did make the CGI better.
What do you mean?
When they erased certain things.
Bums.
Yes. They made it a little better.
Bum show.
And is it bad? Is the CGI bad? Because it is bad. Or is the movie bad and it makes the CGI look worse?
No, it's
I
bad
think it's
CG.
this is tough because I do think it's on par with Will Smith, but there's a lot more of it.
Yeah.
It's
It's
constant.
all of it.
Like at least Will Smith, Big Blue Will Smith goes away.
Yeah.
The cats don't.
So let's
I mean, and so maybe it's embarrassing. There are a couple scenes where Judi Dench is probably wearing
yes.
that actual suit, and it doesn't look as CG. There's Ian McKellen is wearing a big jacket and a cat face, right? It doesn't look
Jennifer
as CG.
Hudson.
But anytime there's motion with these cats,
It's the dancing. It's the James Corden.
oh, the James Corden,
So let's move Aladdin down and put this above
but
Blue Will
not
Smith
up
movie.
It's
to
not-
Jabba
I like how
level.
we've given no plot synopsis for any of these because like it's Star
cats.
Wars. It's cats. It's
Yeah.
Aladdin.
I can't say it's worse than Jabba the Hutt.
Okay.
No.
No.
But what about the Polar Express?
Speaking of uncanny,
Yeah, this is once again we went with just everything in cats. We went with every face.
Which means
face.
Tom Hanks.
They're all Tom Hanks.
yeah,
Even the kid. Tom Hanks.
But it's not as much the face, it's the eyes. There's something just dead behind
Yep.
those eyes. And it is
Tom Hanks or in the movie. Yeah,
This is one of those standards that I've used before. Like, for example, when I was giving my review of The Flash, I called it the Polar Express Vortex.
Meaning, is it top of the line because it's the example, or because it's a little bit older, things can actually be worse?
Because it became the new standard for bad animation. And people love the Polar Express. People watch this movie, and it is endearing to them.
My
Some people
family.
do.
The book, maybe.
But people watch this movie. But I do think it is the standard of bad CGI in
Is
a fully
it
animated movie.
worse than Cats or better than Cats? Because it doesn't seem like we're giving it worse than Jabba.
I might give it worse than Jabba.
Jabba's made out of a cinder block. It looks like a sandstone cinder block.
Jabba looks terrible, but Jabba is avoidable if you watch the original theatrical version, and Jabba is minimal. Polar Express, every scene has those dead eyes, Kent.
That's
every
the point,
scene.
Joel. It's the whole movie.
Visually, the train looks cool. The landscapes look cool.
I can't.
That's not the category. The category is every face.
Yeah, sure.
Faces are so gross.
The scene on top of the train is
Yeah.
genuinely awesome animation because you can't see their faces.
Yeah. Is it worse than Jabba?
But even then, this spawned. I mean, this is maybe the meta here, but this gave us Beowulf, which is terrible, and this gave us Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey, which is super
What was Robert
creepy.
Zemeckis thinking?
yeah.
Oh man,
Oh, is it the worst then?
I think this is the worst.
It's the worst.
I think.
because
okay.
because it's the whole movie. Jabba's just one quick scene.
John has one big mistake.
But it doesn't ruin Star Wars.
No.
All right,
Polar
here-
Express is just ruined.
Here's our uncanny animation short little pyramid. At the bottom, we have Blue Will Smith. Who thought that was the best? But I guess it is. Above that, Cats. Just everything. Then Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars. And at the tippity top of the pyramid is Polar Express. Oof. Ooh.
That was a
It's an ugly show.
ugly category.
All right. Our final category is de-aging, something I am adamantly against. I hate
But they
this
have done it
category.
well.
For example, what would you say?
If I were thinking of a good example, Robert Downey Jr. in
Whatever Avengers movie they did.
when they had like the
Civil War.
yeah, is that the one where they did?
Michael Douglas in Ant-Man. Not bad.
Yeah, that was
Also
actually
good.
pretty good too.
Some people would
Sam-
say Luke, but also a fan went in and made a better edit.
Yeah,
Sam Jackson in...
Oh, I disagree. In
Captain
Captain Marvel,
Marvel?
I disagree. But I hear you.
No, I thought the Luke in Mandalorian was bad.
Me too.
So
like
bad.
it got worse.
it
but
got
not-
better in Boba Fett.
The second appearance is much better.
Yeah, they
Okay.
learned the lesson.
Interesting. Well, let's start here with, for me, one of the first examples of this, which is Professor X in X-Men The Last Stand, the Brett Ratner one.
Isn't that funny? They de-aged Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, and they were working together to go recruit Jean.
Yes.
And this is a flashback, which is also so confusing because then you have the First Class movies that come in,
Yeah.
and they're much younger and at the same. Anyways, it's so confusing. But you have a glossed over Patrick Stewart with a shrunken head.
No, it looks like they took Professor X and put his face on a belt sander. Like there was no texture to it. It was weird looking. Something just went. That's not right.
Like he's
And
still got the sharp jaw and the sharp nose, but it's just a really creepy version.
Is this CG or is this bad makeup?
Both.
This feels like a lot of bad makeup that they kind of smoothed out with CG. This, to
You
me,
might be right.
This doesn't
may be crazy.
but it's
This doesn't feel like CGI to me.
but it's distracting. But it also is part CG as well.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, it's in the mid right now. But Rogue One, we got to talk about Leia.
So
We're not talking about Grand Moff Tarkin here,
in
Which I also think is really distracting.
yeah,
but not as bad.
but when they put the pieces together between Rogue One and A New Hope, and you see them give the plans, and it's on the ship, and then you see Princess Leia, and she turns around, and I'm like, okay,
Hey,
that kind
yeah.
of looks like Princess Leia, and then she just says one word, just says hope, and all of a sudden, it all fell apart. Like her face, just the mouth did not work, and you suddenly went, oh, that is such CGI right there.
Yeah.
So it kind of pulled me out of the movie right there at the end, and I think it's worse than Patrick Stewart.
Just because it is that kind of gut punch moment where you're like, I just saw the coolest scene ever
It
with the Darth
could have
Vader
been.
scene, and then
Yeah.
I saw, oh.
It's like when an Olympic sprinter like falls on his face right before the finish line. You know, where you're like, oh,
I kind of disagree. I think Patrick Stewart is constantly uglier, but that scene is more jarring. Sorry, that sounds so mean. I think he's a very handsome man. Make it so. I think he is, through his short scene in that movie, hard to look at, whereas Leia is bad for a second, but that second almost dethrones an entire movie.
yeah.
Zach, what do you think?
I think Leia is worse.
Okay.
For sure.
And it came much later too. So
Yeah, it
Little-
should have
little
been
weight
better.
there, should
I
have been
actually,
better.
I think Grand Moff Tarkin, they do well because he's darkly lit.
Yeah, that's
a lot
true.
of the time.
but his mouth Something about when they speak, it just doesn't work.
Well, the problem is they did it a little too close up to him.
Yeah.
If he had been further away, I think it would have been just fine.
I agree.
But this is like just a really tight close up of an awkward one word, and you're still just like, this didn't need to be here.
Right.
Okay. Next, speaking of not needing to be here, we have young Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. Well, younger.
Yeah,
because
younger.
He's still older than he is in any of the original 3 movies.
In body.
But even in timeline.
Yeah, but I just mean, okay, so they slapped it. They had Harrison Ford in the scenes. They put black dots all over his face. Then they mapped those out and used footage from the previous movies to kind of make him into a younger Indiana Jones.
Right.
And at first, it looks pretty good.
And in any still
then it goes
frame
on for
of
20
not
minutes.
talking,
Yeah.
it is pretty convincing.
But the mouth, once again, it doesn't work well.
Also, his voice sounds like this now.
And when he moved, he
voice
was
is
moving
wrong.
much slower too.
Even though it was stunt doubles a lot of the time too.
Yeah.
It is still, I think, the best of this category so far.
I hate that I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm
Because
sorry.
I don't like it. But it's better than these other two. What do you think, Joel?
I agree. I think this is the cusp of actually being able to look good.
Right.
Does it feel like it's close?
Yeah.
I wonder what this would have been if they had done a digital voice that they've done with
Yeah.
Luke in the
And Darth
Mandalorian
Vader.
and
Yeah.
Boba Fett
The
and
synthesized
Darth Vader.
voice.
I wonder if it would have gone better
But,
if it had one of
and they
those.
were clever about darkness in these scenes.
They were. It's a very
yeah.
dark scene, and in many shots, I think it genuinely looks good.
Yeah.
So just don't talk. Now this is a weird one. You remember Dear Evan Hansen? No, you don't. You didn't see that movie.
Push for this one to be on there.
Listen, I know it's not CG, but that wig or whatever they did to Ben Platt in Dear Evan
But
Hansen.
then so the movie came out,
yeah.
and then they like re-released because everything's digital right now.
Yeah.
They put out another version where they smoothed his face out
Wait, they did?
in theaters.
Oh, I didn't even know
wow,
this.
in
There was a
theaters they did that?
genuine de-aged version.
How does it look?
Bad.
Oh, it's okay.
It's
Because
like
I was joking about this.
No, it's really they did. It's like a smoothing filter on your cell phone.
Okay.
They genuinely smoothed out his face, and it looks like Renesmee.
Oh no. I would put this at the bottom only because I think it was mostly a joke pick from Ken to just pick on Ben Platt for a bit.
A little bit.
But I think I didn't notice that when I saw the movie as much. I mean, he looked way older than
Yeah.
he should have for the rest of the cast.
It's like, why bother de-aging? Just recast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the best because it doesn't totally belong.
All right. Well,
Still nightmare fuel.
kind of an honorable mention. Then finally, we have Clue from Tron Legacy.
CLU.
This is Jeff Bridges' character.
Now, this was Jeff Bridges when, so in the original Tron movie, he was young. In the Tron Legacy movie, he was older. And they decided to de-age a version of him in the computer that they called Clue, CLU.
This movie swung for the fences.
I love this movie.
Well,
I
sure,
love
that's fine.
the soundtrack for this movie.
I love the games that they play for 10 minutes in this movie.
Sure.
And Olivia Wilde in this movie.
Sure. Okay, but what does he look? People, we always say, what does The Rock look like? What
Okay.
does Neo look like? We always use a specific word to describe it.
Shiny.
He looks like a video game. This is literally a video game.
but
Now-
it's people. It's real life people in a video game.
Okay,
Like, the
okay.
suits
But
look
Clue
fake.
is a
Here's the
program.
thing. In context, Clue fits. The way the mouth moves, the way he looks like a fake-looking, uncanny Jeff Bridges works. But you also see young Jeff Bridges saying goodnight to his son, looking like the exact same character.
That's weird.
And that's where you go, oh, you guys are just bad at this.
Yeah, that's weird.
This is the worst one for me. This was the one where
This
when-
is the archetype. Is that what you're saying?
Well, for me, in this category, when I look at de-aging, that was one where I went, they should have done that better because it doesn't look good.
This was like 2010.
Yeah.
This is better than Leia,
Yeah.
which came out years ago.
Yeah.
This isn't. I don't think this is the worst.
You don't.
No,
Because it's a prominent
You
character.
think Leia's worse?
I think Leia is worse, and it came out years and years and years, essentially a decade later.
He's throughout the movie, though.
But it's
and every time you see it, you go, oh, yeah.
you are
gross.
literally in a video game world, and Clue himself is not human. He is a program.
Sorry, they can't fall back on that. It's just bad de-aging.
Because even Olivia Wilde looks like a human.
And she's an
She
alien.
looks, she looks really realistic in that movie.
She's also a program.
I'm giving him the worst.
Yeah, she is.
So you think that Clue is worse than Leia?
I do.
I do
That
as well.
Clue is worse than Professor X.
Yes.
And young Indiana Jones.
Yes.
I don't like you guys.
Yeah.
Baconsale.
I love you, Tron Legacy. All right, with that, this is our de-aging pyramid from the bottom, working our way up. Young Indiana Jones from Dial of Destiny, Professor X from X-Men The Last Stand, Leia from Rogue One, and I guess Clue from Tron Legacy.
Sounds about
Zach.
right.
Sorry, Zach.
The rest of the CGI in that movie is dope. We are now done with all of our 7 categories.
Okay.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
That was ugly.
But we have a winner in every category. We have the peak of the pyramid, and I want them to create their own pyramid of sadness.
Like a
So we
nightmare
are
fuel
going
pyramid.
To put them all together. Oh, boy.
All in this together.
Okay, for the final CGI, could have looked clearer mid. I don't even know what we
Could have
called
looked
them.
clear mid.
Could have looked Fearamid. Could have looked better amid.
Take 2 and call us in the morning.
First off, we have the Scorpion King from The Mummy Returns.
Okay.
We've
already talked about
That's
it.
our mid.
So bad. It's just, once again, The Rock coming out of the
But also,
Oh.
2001
as
movie.
part Scorpion.
Okay.
PS2. Okay, is Birdemic better or worse?
It came out later, like almost 10 years later.
It is better because
Birdemic
there's
is
no
better?
expectations.
They made this movie for half the price of like
A Toyota Tercel?
a car.
Yeah, there are no expectations for Birdemic. That's the joke.
But they should have known better.
I think they were counting on people watching this movie for the reason that it's so ugly.
If Baconsale made a movie, it would not be as good as Birdemic.
How dare you?
No, we would not do as well.
Writing,
Come on.
acting, sound design. Zach, we have you. The lighting is already better on our movie.
Have you heard the radio play where we cry? That's acting. Cinema.
Just saying. I think The Mummy Returns is worse. I think Scorpion King is worse than Birdemic.
No, it is worse.
I disagree, but it's 2-1.
Okay. What about ice surfing and Die Another Day?
It is right between us. It's right in the middle. Birdemic's still the best. What am I saying? What am I saying?
I don't know.
Birdemic is so bad, but we're giving all these other movies a pass because they're old.
Birdemic's almost. I almost feel like we kind of shouldn't include it.
We're punching down on Birdemic.
We are.
No. They tried
No.
to be. They tried to be cool. They're not.
No, they didn't.
It's
Nobody
so
has
bad.
seen this movie, Joel.
Nor should they. It is
That's the
so
thing.
bad.
We are the guys who are keeping this movie alive.
The only way to watch
Nobody else
this
is.
We
The
just
only
gave
way
it
to
so
watch
much
this is riff
publicity.
tracks. Watch it with riff tracks.
Yes.
That's the only way to watch it.
But it's still the best of the category.
Oh, it's not the best. But so, do you think what is worse, the Scorpion
Oh, okay.
King or Die Another Day's ice surfing?
Personally, Scorpion King.
Yeah, that's Scorpion King is worse than ice surfing.
The climactic final scene of Die Another Day is the ice hotel melting, at least.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but then
the
they have-
Scorpion King is the big buildup to the
true.
at the end. Like that's it. All led to that.
Yeah.
What a letdown. Okay, how about Wolverine's claws?
Such a good competitor.
And I personally would put Wolverine's Claws below Birdemic because
You think it's better?
I think it's better in the sense of we have good examples.
No, I think it showed us what a bad Wolverine movie could be because we were excited for a Wolverine standalone movie. And all of a sudden we went, oh, yeah, this is bad. And I know it. I cannot deny this anymore. I think that's the second worst after Scorpion King.
Zach, you're gonna have to break. You're gonna have to kind of land that where you would.
This is a big budget movie, and you know where I stand on that. They had every opportunity to do it right. They had done it right 3 times before this.
That is true.
So is it worst for you?
It's worse than Birdemic, for sure. But the surfing, though.
I don't think it's worse than the surfing. I think borrowing the set from Happy Feet was a poor choice, but they just
Without
had
the
it.
soundtrack, too.
Yeah,
I don't think it's worse than the surfing, but
Okay.
it's really bad. However, Superman's face in Justice League, though, that's worse than the claws for me.
Yes.
and that is so much more recent.
It's a top 2 for me.
But is it worse than the Scorpion King? What are we putting at the top here?
It's akin to the Scorpion King. It was the big thing that was compared to it.
And it came 20 years
20
later.
years later.
20 years later, and all they weren't hybriding a human wrestler and a scorpion. They were taking a mustache off of someone's face,
And it's
something
from-
that Gillette has been doing for decades.
And it's from a guy that I don't personally like at this point. No one really does.
I don't.
But directed 2 of the most successful movies of all time with The Avengers and The Avengers Age of Ultron, which had, I know he's not in charge of special effects, obviously, but he was able to oversee things that did look pretty okay. And then he was show running the bad jawline of Henry Cavill.
They made Henry Cavill ugly. Did they make The Rock ugly?
Yes.
No, they made an animated version of The Rock.
He gives the people's eyebrow. He winks at the audience.
Look, if The Mummy Returns were a cartoon and that was part of it, that would be perfectly normal.
But it's not a cartoon.
Because we know it was The Rock and he came out looking like a cartoon, that
Right.
made us...
At least he doesn't talk.
That's true. And he's not...
Does that make
he's
Henry
close up
Cavill
his
worse?
face.
He doesn't talk. But there's a lot of close-ups of Henry Cavill's face. That scene in the cornfield with Lois, where he looks like human Shrek.
You smell good. Ah.
Yeah.
What does he growl?
And I'm also a big fan of Justice, and only his bottom lip.
Yeah, if anyone could see what Zach is doing right now.
Oh,
Bad dubbing.
I think it's.
Is it the worst? Is it worse than Scorpion King?
I don't know, because Scorpion King is a whole creature, and again, it's the big lead up. But we didn't even talk about Steppenwolf.
Oh.
We could have put.
we could have put
in.
Steppenwolf here.
He could have.
The original, not the new one.
But once
So the new
again,
one's awesome.
age and quantity. Scorpion King is 20 years younger, and Scorpion King pops out near the end for the climactic battle. Justice League is nowadays when things should have been better, and it's throughout the whole movie.
Because I take personal offense to Justice League, and because anytime you look up Justice League on Google, you will see Henry Cavill's face this way. It kind of ruined his reputation for a little bit.
Okay. So
Is it the worst?
We'll put it at the top.
Yep, it's at the top.
For now.
so far.
Okay. But what about the Polar Express, though? Speaking of bad faces.
Polar Express to me is...
It's the epitome. Right?
It is the epitome of bad animated movies, but it still is an animated children's movie.
I don't think it is the epitome of bad CGI.
No, I mean bad
Like-
animated,
What,
like
like
3D
Delgo?
animation.
Yeah. No, I agree with
Yeah.
you. It's. I think the Scorpion King is the poster child for bad CGI.
Yeah.
And I think that the Polar Express is just really creepy.
So I would put it below Scorpion King, but I would put it above Die Another Day because it is the dead
would I.
eyes
Yep.
joke.
I agree with that.
Yep.
Ooh, wow.
Finally, Clue from Tron Legacy. De-aged Jeff Bridges.
With this list, not so bad. Truthfully.
With this list,
And it's in a good movie.
I think he looks better than Polar Express.
I think
Yeah.
we can't give Birdemic the best of this list. I'm going to have to give it personally for Tron.
I would put Birdemic at the
I know you would, like the bottom.
The bottom.
But for this, I think Tron is the best use of CG. Because they really swung for the fences on
But
this
it's
one.
so egregious on his face.
They do it's a colorless face.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody in Tron always has been fairly colorless to the face.
right.
There is a lot of that dark lighting. There's not a ton of close-ups. They know what they're working.
It's
with.
really hard, though, because he yells in a lot of scenes, and yelling with CG faces doesn't quite work. But I do think it's the best of the list.
but it's not worse than Birdemic.
No.
It's not worse than the Wolverine claws.
No.
See, I would say it's worse than Wolverine claws, but
Because
it's
they
not
only
worse
show
than
for a
Birdemic,
second.
and Birdemic is already locked in, so I got to put it at the bottom.
Birdemic, Wolverine. I'm genuinely knocking it down because we saw it better
Yeah.
3 movies prior.
But they probably
Yeah.
got their budget cut.
But why? They were making money hand over fist, hand over claw. Okay, what do you think about this list? Working from the bottom up. Clue from Tron Legacy, Birdemic, Wolverine's Claws and X-Men Origin, Ice Surfing and Die Another Day, The Polar Express, Every Face, The Scorpion King, and the worst CGI example is Henry Cavill's face in Justice.
Okay, the top 2 are right on the cusp.
Yeah. But also, I want to give an honorable mention to Superman's face basically leads into the Flash anytime he's in the Speed Force.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with this list. I'm fine with Justice League being the top. And I do think that Scorpion King was king for so long because it was like the bad example. And I think time will forget Scorpion King, but not Henry Cavill's hairless upper lip.
How many good examples of CGI came out before The Mummy Returns?
Very few.
But how many great examples came out before Justice League? I mean, come on.
You're right.
Yeah. So there you go.
Avatar came out. Come on, guys.
I know.
Justice League is at the top of the worst CGI.
I actually didn't predict this at all.
This is such a biased podcast.
Absolutely. But we also want to know if you agree with us. Maybe you're biased like we are. Let us know on Facebook. Let us know on Instagram. Let us know on Twitter if you think that we nailed the worst CGI in film or if there are other examples we didn't even talk about. We want to hear from you.
Before we go, we want to thank some patrons in a couple of categories, including the I Am the Listener tier, which is Briggs is Hot, Angela Plotz, Casey Cummings, Juice the Cooler King Swallow, Andrew's Doing a Big Jump, Sir and Madam Hicks, Jennifer Kilkowski, Taylor Sanderson, Rocky and Steph, Adam and Rachel Crump, Ryan and Marley, Dave Kelly, Lady Terry A. Finley, and Scott Sprague. Then we have our Bacon Council, which is Debbie Foster, Glow Clendaniel, Our favorite couple, the Madsons, Johnny English the Brick, Star Wars expert Kyler, Her Royal Highness Jessica Terry, Stephen, everyone's favorite Ross, the one, the only Chris Anderson, Nicole D. Hale, and Beaker.
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons.
You are the Renez to our May. But if you want to find me, you can find me at 76Joel on Twitter. You can find me performing with the Quickwits. They perform at the Midvale Performing Arts Center. For more details, go to qwcomedy.com or go to the Quickwits Facebook page.
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Kenny3DD. You can read my movie reviews at ShowtimeShowdown.com.
If you'd like to connect with me, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram at Tumbling Mustard. But more importantly, make sure you're following Baconsale. Please like that Facebook page and then go to at Baconsale on Twitter and Instagram. While you're doing that, visit tpublic.com/Baconsale where you can get yourself some merch. And then if you like the show and you like what's going on here, you want to support us further, visit patreon.com/Baconsale. Support starts at just $3 a month. You can get access to all sorts of extra content. And we're doing a video here coming up where we taste test lemon lime sodas.
So fun.
It's kind of weird. Patreon.com/Baconsale. So until next time, you guys are the least worst part of my pyramid.
Aww.
We want it. We love it.
We want some more
along.
of it.
That wasn't real.
Nolan.
Batman's not real.
What? Nolan?
And I want like a metal snake to come out of his arm. This is BB. This is before Briggs.
BZOB.
BZ on Baconsale.
BYOBZBB.
Bless you. The troll in the dungeon.
He fell into the statue and then became the reptile we all know and love. Melbodio.
And there are meatballs with teeth.
The Mummy Returns is the movie where the mummy, he returns.
Whoa. I didn't expect an actual scorpion. What is that? Can I give some credit to A Tale of Two Kitties?
James Marsden, he likes ugly friends. That's not how physics works.
Shink,
Shirt,
sneaked. What's the sound? Shink, shirt. I'm in love with the baby.
You've never seen a hyper-aware baby before. The microwave dings. I think many babies is worse than one baby.
Don't put a lawnmower man between the babies.
Let's make that mistake. Save it for our mustache tearing show.
Slimy, but not in the way it should be. Bums.
Yes.
Bum show.
It's not as much the face, it's the eyes. There's something just dead behind those eyes. It looks like they took Professor X and put his face on a belt sander.
I agree. I think Patrick Stewart is constantly uglier.
Even Olivia Wilde looks like a human.
Could have looked clearer mid. Like if Baconsale made a movie, it would not be as good as Birdemic.
They weren't hybriding a human wrestler and a scorpion. They were taking a mustache off of someone's face.
And it's
something that Gillette has been doing for decades.
You smell good.
Brosnan breath sounds.